Welcome to the Safety Net. I'm your host, Stephen Bressler. I'm sure that all of us have heard about or read stories in the newspapers or seen on TV or on the internet about disabled persons being abused, especially when there is sexual abuse. Who do you turn to if you are disabled and have experienced abuse from a relative or caregiver? Who do you turn to if you have a loved one who you believe might be being abused at home or a nursing home or some other facility? Well, our guests today are going to tell us the answers to those questions and more. I want to welcome, Sarah Garrity, who has the apt title of Navigator with the Massachusetts Disabled Persons Protection Commission's Sexual Assault Response Unit. And we have with us peer support leader, Patti Quatieri. Welcome to you both. Sarah, let's start with you telling us what the Disabled Persons Protection Commission is, and more specifically, what's the Sexual Assault Response Unit?
Great question. So the Disabled Persons Protection Commission is an independent state agency that is responsible for investigating and remediating acts of abuse or neglect against persons with disabilities. So they have a 24/7 hotline that people can call if they suspect abuse or neglect. Mm-hmm. The Sexual Assault Response Unit is one part of the Disabled Persons Protection Commission, and we are fairly new. We've been in existence for about 2 years now, and our role is to increase access to trauma services for survivors of sexual violence who have disabilities.
It's amazing. How can you help survivors of sexual assault?
Also a really important question. So after someone experiences sexual assault, while everyone's experience is certainly different, there are some common needs that people may have. Mm-hmm. So first is emotional and psychological needs. So someone may be feeling really ashamed or guilty or sad or angry. And so we can help folks get connected to counseling or their local rape crisis center or other types of education around sexual violence and its effects to help someone. Sometimes people also have trouble going to work or going back to school. Maybe it's overwhelming, or the abuse happened there, or someone in that environment is making it feel like it's not a safe place to be. Mm-hmm. And so we can help people work through some of those challenges. The other thing that we do quite often is help people with legal issues that they may face. So if someone needs to break their lease, for example, or if someone's interested in filing for a restraining order, or if someone wants to hear about their reporting options through the criminal justice system, we can help with all of those pieces. And the other thing that we can help with is sort of really based on what the person needs. So when we think about healing after sexual violence, we're really thinking about all the aspects of someone's life that might be affected. Mm-hmm. So people have really quite a wide range of needs that they may have, and so we will connect them to the service that can help them, and help them even once they are connected to make sure that that working relationship is really effective for the person.
How big is your agency? How much staff do you have? So
we are statewide. The Disabled Persons Protection Commission is a statewide agency. Mm-hmm. The Sexual Assault Response Unit is also statewide. We have navigators in each region of the state. So right now we have 4 full-time sexual assault navigators, and we also have 2 peer support leaders, Patti being one and Leanne Barry being the other. We also have a peer support coordinator, a job coach, and our supervisor as well. So we are small but mighty.
Okay, how did the title of Navigator come about?
So I think part of what our job is how figure out what piece do each of the systems that a survivor will interact with play in their healing, and how can we work together collaboratively with all of these systems to make a difference. So a lot of times if someone doesn't have someone helping them navigate the systems, it can be really overwhelming. So they might go to the police station for one issue and be referred to legal assistance at another agency and then have to go and make that appointment. And then they may also have health concerns. So maybe they go to their emergency department or their physician, or maybe they get connected to a school counselor but want a therapist. past. And so what we do is help coordinate all of that care and help people figure out from each system that they may interact with what they can get out of that experience.
And you're called a navigator because you navigate.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Patti, and you're a peer support leader.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for 2 years.
And how did you get involved?
Well, I was on the beginning. I was on 2017. We had an ACL grant, so I was on their committee, and then that's how I really got hired from that grant.
Absolutely. And so one thing that Patti is bringing up here is she has been part of the founding of the unit and has really helped us structure the way that we provide services and what types of services we provide so that they really are accessible for folks with disabilities. And the DPPC, or the Disabled Persons Protection Commission, had gotten a grant through the American Civil Liberties. It's not American Civil Liberties. It was a grant that helped them do an assessment of what resources were available in the community for folks who would experience sexual violence, and they sort of looked at those and said, are these accessible for people with disabilities? And if not, what are the needs and what are the gaps? And we were founded from that project. So Patti's been there from the beginning and has really shaped the unit.
How many people like you, peer support leaders, are there?
We had Leanne and me. I was working with Math Advocacy in Spawn when this grant came out, so my old job. And so we have self-advocates who come in to this grant and tell them how we can make their guy much better and simple. And means we had people rape crisis, DDS, and in finance we had different groups and messy health. So we work around and tell them how we can help you with people with disability and how to work with them.
Yeah. So if someone watching this says, gee, you know, Aunt Becky, I'm concerned about her. I don't know if anything's happening, but I think something might be happening. What should Aunt Beck, what should this caller, this relative, do in terms of calling you folks for help?
Sure. So what folks can do is call the Disabled Persons Protection Commission's 24/7 hotline and make a report that they are concerned about someone. If they do that, they can then be directly connected to our unit because we'll actually get that information and then outreach directly to the person. However, we do have the option of also calling our unit directly. So sometimes people have experienced sexual violence a long time ago, or there's other circumstances and they just want the support piece. And so they can call us directly, and then from there we can also figure out whether to also make the call to the hotline.
Okay, and here's a copy of their flyer. Talks about the hotline with all the telephone numbers to call, which is really great. And you're located in Braintree?
Yes, so we're headquartered in Braintree, but we are statewide, so our services are mobile, so we'll meet people in the community, at other agencies, or other places that they feel safe.
And what is your catchment here? What is your territory?
So I cover the Metro Boston area. It spans from down to Dedham, all the way up to Winthrop, all the way out to Hudson and Westboro and Southboro. So it is very wide. But yeah, it's
And what other regions are there?
So our regions overlap with the Department of Developmental Services service regions. So I think there is the Metro Boston area. There's the Northeast region, which my colleague Trish is in. There's the Southeast region, which my colleague Bonnie is in. She's actually our navigator coordinator and helped found the unit as well. And then we have the central area of Massachusetts and the western area of Massachusetts, both covered by my colleague Jackie. She has quite the large area to cover.
And Patti, do you travel around the state also?
I travel around the states. Means I do.
I hope you like traveling.
Yeah, I do. I do all the Metro, Northeast, whatever, who needs peer support.
Yeah. And I also think one of the incredible accomplishments that peer support has had over this summer is that Patti actually led the first ever national convening of peer support leaders in Colorado at the National Adult Protective Services Association conference. So anyone can actually tune into that and take a look at what happened there. But she has been working tirelessly and traveling, and actually in California, this fall, she has been asked to speak at a conference there for self-advocates as well, so she'll be heading there in October. Lots of traveling.
Yeah, lots of traveling.
I work with teacher from California. She's last year, the first time we did a workshop. The first time with California and Massachusetts. So we've been working together past 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
And collaboration is really important to us. So Patti has been able to make some connections across the country to help facilitate really a huge look at what resources are available for folks on a national level.
We have viewers not only here in Brookline, but all over the country. So does every state have a Disabled Persons Protection Commission? Or?
No.
No.
They go under the LA Affairs, so that means all disability will go under the LA Affairs.
Elderly Affairs.
Yeah.
So Massachusetts is unique in that they have a specific agency designed to respond to abuse or neglect against persons with disabilities, whereas many states don't have that, which means the focus on people with disabilities sometimes gets overshadowed by the needs of folks who are elderly, although those needs aren't always inexclusive, but it can be, we found it beneficial to have a unit focused specifically on the needs of folks with disabilities.
Do you folks work closely with the Attorney General's office and district attorneys around the state?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
We have a state police unit that actually works with us within the Disabled Persons Protection Commission, and they screen all incoming reports for any sort of criminal activity and then send it forward to the local district attorney's office. And then the district attorney's office will work with local police department, will work with the Disabled Persons Protection Commission to take next steps.
I think there was an article recently in the Boston Globe that talked about an audit of facilities, nursing homes, et cetera, and questions came up about the safety of residents and patients there. Is that something that your agency is also involved with that audit?
Yes, so the Disabled Persons Protection Commission would work in conjunction with the Department of Public Health and the Executive Office of Elder Affairs to take a look at long-term residential care facilities and the conditions there.
Do you visit different police departments and talk to police officers as part of in-service training to familiarize folks, police officers, to be aware of what the potential crimes are?
Yes, definitely. We do really try to take a collaborative approach to addressing sexual violence. So we do have close connections with local police departments, also other community agencies that our people may go to after a sexual assault. So in the Metro Boston area, that's Boston Area Rape Crisis Center, Voices Against Violence in Framingham, and Wayside Trauma Services out further in towards the central Massachusetts, just in this region. And we connect also with other disability services providers, just to make sure that no matter what door a survivor comes to, that folks know exactly how to help and what resources are available.
What's the Massachusetts Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program?
That's a great question. So it's a program funded by the Department of Public Health, and what it does is certain hospitals can become designated SANE sites where a survivor of sexual violence can go after they've experienced sexual violence and get access to medical forensic care following a sexual assault. So folks can go in and expect to have a nurse who has been specially trained in working with folks with trauma and who's also specially trained in doing the forensic evidence collection kit. So it really is an incredible experience for survivors. It's free, and they're really catering to what the survivor wants. So someone doesn't have to go necessarily through all of the steps of the SANE kit, but they could. But the nurse will listen to them and help them make the best choice for them.
I noticed that you have some material that's also in Spanish. Do you have multilingual folks working at the commission, or?
Yes, we do. We do have folks who speak Spanish, and that is right now the limits to our language capacities. But we do work with interpreters so that any survivor, regardless of their language, can work with us.
Do you work with the immigrant community and immigrant advocacy organizations?
Yes. So right now in the Metro Boston area, I'm fairly new to the position, and so I'm definitely still building those relationships. But we do work with immigration groups, and most recently we did our first ever presentation here in Metro Boston in Spanish, led by my colleague, and a lot of those folks had brought up some concerns that people who are immigrants may be facing as they also navigate the aftermath of sexual assault.
How do you help with finances? Folks who may not have access to bank accounts, or who aren't working, who need to pay for whatever services that might be recommended through your agency?
That's a great question. So a lot of the services, our services themselves are free and don't require health insurance or anything like that. And what we do is help them identify other resources that exist in the community that are either free or provided on a sliding scale, or another way to help them access those services. So the other piece to what we do is help people with the job search if they need help with that, and connect them to resources that will help them through the job search. So thinking about it, not just the actual money piece, but helping people get on their feet and figure out what they may need. And then also we work very closely with, we refer a lot of folks to Victims' Compensation, which is a fund available through the Attorney General's office for victims of crime in Massachusetts. So it's a pretty simple form to fill out, and if someone is found eligible after they apply, it opens up additional funding for things like therapy, or to cover other costs that may have resulted from the sexual assault.
What about schools? You work with schools also?
So we work primarily with folks ages 18 and up. So we haven't had much interaction with schools, but definitely colleges, and definitely with schools that have programs for adult learners.
Patti, how about Patti? With whom are you working?
I'm working with the clients, and I train professionals how to work with people with disability. And I work with life crisis, law enforcement, so they know how to work with people with disability. Make sure you listen to them. Make sure you be patient. Make sure you do everything simple. Make sure if you have something non-verbal, we could have things like an app, iPad, or a picture data point with people that can't talk or hear, and things that I help. Mostly I help the navigators make sure they have right resources to people with disabilities. Because I know the DDS system, I know a lot. Medicare, Mass Health system, so I help. I run around like crazy, you know?
Yes.
So I do train a lot of people past 3 years.
And a lot of folks have come to the peer support team to have them look at some of the materials that they provide and make sure that they are accessible and that they are simple and easy to read for folks who do have intellectual or developmental disabilities. So that's another huge part of what Patti and the peer support team does.
What's your caseload?
So I would say right now I'm working actively with about 35 people, and that really ebbs and flows. I think the awesome part about what we do is there's not a certain amount of sessions or hours that people have with us. We can really work with them on an ongoing basis as needed, and we don't close cases or anything like that. So some people may need support for a longer period of time. There may be one issue that gets resolved and then another one comes up, and so it extends the length of time we're working together. Other folks we may meet with once or twice, and that's sort of it, and they're all set. And so we definitely try to budget in time for building relationships and being available to folks as needed.
How serious a problem is this? Do you have hundreds of, not just you specifically, but does the commission and your unit have tens of cases a year? Not just you again, but the other folks working with you, hundreds, thousands? How big a problem is this in Massachusetts?
So what we know is that folks with intellectual or developmental disabilities are anywhere between 3 to 7 times more likely to experience sexual violence. NPR actually did a really awesome series that's still available on their website called Abused and Betrayed that highlights some survivor stories and really captures the breadth of how often this is happening for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we also know that it's folks who have psychiatric issues or challenges are also experiencing sexual violence at a significantly higher rate. So overall, these folks are experiencing high levels of sexual violence. Having taken this year in particular, I think a lot in case due to our outreach that we do with folks, there was an increase in reports of sexual violence reported to the Disabled Persons Protection Commission, a 27% increase in reports. And I believe, and I would have to look into it, but I think we served around 500 folks last year, and that's expected to increase. That was when they were working with only 2 or 3 navigators. So the numbers are up there.
Wow, 500 cases.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, do most of them come from, most of the complaints come from or involve people in nursing homes or psychiatric facilities or assisted living or folks who are living at home with other relatives?
So
do you have a sense of that?
There really is a very wide range of experience. I would say that most of the people who call and report to the hotline are what we call mandated reporters. So they are required by law, by nature of their work, to report suspected abuse or neglect against persons with disabilities. So we are seeing a lot of folks who have care through paid providers, but there are a lot of folks that we get reports on from folks living in the community, living with family, living on their own independently, who also experience sexual violence. So it's not something that's necessarily limited to like a nursing facility or something like that. It really is spanning across all areas.
So are nursing homes in general safe?
Yeah.
I mean, when you hear about these things happening, caregivers behaving badly, et cetera, a lot of times you hear about nursing homes or these types of facilities. Could you have a guesstimate of what percentage of cases involve nursing homes or similar places?
You know, I have to be honest, I don't have facts that I can provide, but one thing that I can say is sort of how we approach those situations, which for us is that we always start by believing. So if there is someone who's coming forth and saying that they've had an experience with sexual violence, we focus less on whether or not this is truly happening, but more on why is this person bringing this up now? What is it that's making them feel unsafe? And approach it really from a trauma lens, thinking about the fact that many people, even if it wasn't yesterday or right now, have experienced some sort of sexual violence in their life. And so what we sometimes see is reports, and they're coming from people at all ages of life, and sometimes we focus less on we do certainly focus on is the environment safe, but less on is this something that can be solved by locking doors and background checks and things like that. And it's certainly those are important safety precautions, but we really try to think of it from a very holistic standpoint and thinking about all the reasons why someone may need support, may come to our doors for support.
Do you have situations where you get a phone call and say, I think something's going on, then you investigate it and nothing's going on?
So our unit is separate from investigations, so we don't ever have to go through the process of fact checking. Mm-hmm. I'm sure something like that may happen for some folks, and the important thing that we've learned through our work is that especially when someone has a disability, being able to recount chronologically something that's happened can be difficult. And also, someone may have had experiences in the past that are surfacing for them now because they haven't had the opportunity to share what's happened to them, or they haven't sought treatment, or maybe it's just something that's really salient and present for them right now. So that's what we focus on.
Patti, why did you decide to become a peer leader?
Because I've been finding this unit for years. I knew about Nancy Theo, who we've been talking for many, many years about this unit. Because I got assaulted in 1985, I got assaulted, and the DPC just opened 1987, so I didn't have that support. I didn't have anybody there to help me for the law enforcement and police station and all that. And that's why I really am passionate about this job. And it's not, I want, and then tell people about trauma informed instead of having people call us psychotic. Then,
Well, Sarah, how did you get involved with this? What made you decide to go to work for the commission, and especially the Sexual Assault Response Unit?
Yeah, so I have worked with survivors of sexual violence in a couple of different agencies since I was an undergraduate in college, and I really am drawn to the work because of the focus on really larger change and really addressing some of the societal issues that create an environment where sexual violence can flourish. So racism and sexism and homophobia all create an environment where people don't feel safe and where people act on some of these things. And I really like the focus on stopping some of that stuff and changing some of that stuff.
You do a good job, I can tell you, and our view is that when Sarah appeared before the Brookline Domestic Violence Roundtable, we were all thoroughly impressed with her comments, her presentation. We're lucky to have Sarah Garrity working in Massachusetts on behalf of folks with disabilities, and Patti also. Really glad. And I'm looking at the clock, and we're almost out of time. Last words, Patti? Anything to say?
Well, I think we're doing this peer support because we want to make sure that their peers, we can talk to them with our peers. Instead, if they don't want to talk to the advocates, we're right there. So,
Sarah, do you have any last observations?
Sure. I would echo what Patti said, that a huge part of the work that peer support does and that we believe in is the model of nothing about us without us, so including folks with disabilities at the table as we think about how to serve them. And also really that our model is to start by believing, and it makes such an impact for folks if after they've experienced sexual violence that people say, that is a really tough thing that you have just shared with me, and I believe you, and I'm going to work with you to figure out what we can do next.
And you and other navigators, and Patti, as a peer leader, you're all available to speak to different community groups?
Yes, definitely.
Who need more information about this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I know we're going to flash your contact information on the screen. And we're really almost out of time. So thank you, Sarah Garrity and Patti Quatieri, for being on the show, and thank you, viewers, for watching. The Safety Net is a project of the Brookline Domestic Violence Roundtable in cooperation with Brookline Interactive Group. See you next time.